When you get rich, will there be signs? I think this is something you need to think deeply about. Too often I'm logging into Reddit or TikTok and see a post about how when someone gets rich, they won't tell anyone. But there will be signs like this Lambo being towed by some beater car. In fact, I would argue if you are watching a financial video like this one, you definitely care about getting rich. But have you ever thought about the reasons why you want to be rich? Perhaps you want to quit your job and travel the world. Perhaps you want to open a sushi restaurant on the shores of Hawaii. Or maybe you just want to retire your parents. There's also a large majority of people out there who just simply want to show off their newfound wealth. Whether that's through buying something like a Lamborghini or the latest trendiest $500 t-shirt from Off-White. I mean, there's a freaking crocodile on this one, so it has to be justified, right? Just kidding. If you were to be completely honest with yourself, there's probably a small part of you that wants to let your peers know that, hey, I'm doing pretty good financially, but I want to introduce you to another concept when you get rich, and that's to tell no one. This is sometimes also called stealth wealth. You want to be rich, but reduce the chances of any random person knowing how much you have in the bank, or what assets you have, or your total net worth. In other words, you want to get rich without anyone noticing. Some of the richest billionaires exist among the general population, but you would have no idea because they would wear regular clothes, they might drive a crappy car, and they live in a modest household. But why is it that they practice this type of lifestyle when their money can literally afford them anything that they want to get their hands on? One reason is privacy and security. It actually becomes a liability once you have a lot of money and are well known at the same time. You could become a victim of burglaries or even lawsuits from strangers in your own family. Take the latest string of burglaries on NFL players, for example. The FBI had to recently warn pro athletes about burglaries targeting their homes. And this would happen often when the pro elite was actually on the road playing a game against an opposing team. It doesn't really take a genius to look up the playing schedule of a rich and wealthy quarterback. And if they know that the quarterback is going to be out of town, well then it makes stealing that much easier. And these burglars are often organized theft groups who prepare for these burglaries much ahead of time. Quote, "They are not targeting poor people. They are targeting rich famous billionaires, sports stars," said Kent Moyer, who runs the World Protection Group security firm. Quote, "It's very easy for a bad guy to find out where you live." Another cautionary tale is Billy Bob Harrell, a man who came into immense wealth after winning a $31 million lottery jackpot in the mid-90s. He was a 47-year-old man who was convinced that this money would help him support his wife and family as he was barely getting by at the time. But his story quickly turned tragic. After turning into a local celebrity for winning the lottery, he hated telling people no when they needed help. So he did what any generous person would do. He started to hand money out to anyone that needed the money, and then he donated a lot to his own church as well, and splurged on homes and cars for his own family. But this behavior would cause friction between him and his wife because they had disagreements on how to handle the money. And 8 months after he won the lottery, they divorced. Even after the divorce, though, Billy Bob still continued to spend at a breakneck speed, and within a few years was completely out of money and in debt again. He said that, quote, "Winning the lottery is the worst thing that ever happened to me." And that's what he told his financial advisor at the time. He became so unhappy that he ended his life prematurely in 1999. You could argue that the attention Billy Bob received was not helpful at all. As someone who couldn't say no to people, becoming wealthy in silence would have been a much better outcome for him. Whenever you do get rich, you don't want to tell anyone how much money you have and never flex it because there's no reason to, in my opinion. There's so much more downside in terms of privacy and security. If you really want to revel in how much money you have, just check your bank account before you go to bed and pat yourself on the back. Understand that the money you have can buy whatever you need, financial freedom, travel, etc. But there's no real reason to really flex it. On the topic of maintaining this low profile, another benefit of not telling anyone you have money is that new people you meet will not become friends with you for the wrong reasons. I'm sure we've all experienced when someone wants to get to know you just because they have an agenda of their own. A problem you may run into if you're too flashy on social media, for example, or you buy things to show off, is that you will start to attract this crowd that values this sort of thing. If your entire Instagram feed is made up of photos of Lamborghinis, well, guess what? When someone sees you out in the wild, they might be interested in getting to know you just because of the cars that you own. Some of these people will be car enthusiasts, but I'm sure you'll also get people wondering how you attained your wealth. And maybe that may not be the authentic connection you might be seeking. If you want a way to avoid this, just drive a modest car. I guarantee that you'll save yourself a lot of money as well as headache. Because when you drive a fancy European car like a Lamborghini or Ferrari, the headache that comes along with car ownership can be nauseating as well. Car maintenance is going to be 5 times more expensive, and sometimes you bring your car into the shop and it can't get fixed for 5 weeks because they need to special order you apart from Europe because it's not made in mass. Not to mention that while you can daily drive a Ferrari or Lamborghini, you might not actually want to. I mean, sometimes they're not as comfortable as normal cars, and you'll likely have to own another car that you can drive during the week. And that's why, according to a study at Experian Automotive, a significant portion of high earners don't even drive luxury cars. And the study actually identified Toyota, Honda, and Ford as the popular choices for the wealthy. If you're able to maintain this low profile, perhaps you drive a normal car, you don't have a social media Instagram that's completely crazy, you will attract a lot of genuine connections and save yourself a ton of headache when it comes to even owning some of these luxury machines like a Lambo. A third reason you may want to consider getting rich and not having anyone notice is that you keep the relationships you do have happy and stable. So, I'm going to be honest with you here. People are jealous of what they don't have. Even if your best friend is truly happy for you, 99% of the time you have some success, there's always going to be a small thought in their brain of, what would it look like if my life was like that? Or, why couldn't that just be me? I think it's human nature to have these types of thoughts. In some work environments, appearing too wealthy might actually create resentment from your coworkers and make you seem a little bit out of touch. So, we want to be careful with our outward image because number one, I don't think you want to ruin any of your friendships. Not saying that it would happen to you, but some of your friends might get jealous. Number two, your coworkers don't need to know anything at all. I think that's just a general principle. And number three, honestly, when someone doesn't know your financial position, it can actually be quite advantageous for any subsequent negotiations or situations. An action item here is to avoid talking about anything that can lead someone to understand how much money you have or how much money you make through methods of logic or deduction. So I'm sure most of you probably know not to share your exact net worth, but if somebody asks you, hey, how much did you pay in taxes this year? Don't say the number. Be subtle about it. Because if you tell someone your tax bill is, say, $500,000, you can probably ballpark what you actually make. Similarly, if you tell me you lost 100K on stocks this week or you made 100K on stocks, that's probably not a good idea either. At this point, you're only drawing attention to yourself as well as you might be creating resentment within your friends if they aren't in that position. And in my opinion, there's not really a lot of upside in sharing that information. Another example I just thought of is that if you've ever had any contractor do some service work for you, if somebody knows how much money you're worth or how much you make, they could charge you way more for the same service that they charge for someone else who doesn't have that much money. And while this isn't an ethical business practice on the contractor's end, it realistically happens a lot. There's always going to be this attitude of, well, they can afford it, so I'm just going to charge them more. It's kind of like the same logic when somebody steals from a grocery store or major chain. You might hear someone say they won't notice it because they're a major chain, their margins are so good, they're evil, etc. Why should I feel bad about it? Unfortunately, this is just human behavior, whether people are thinking about it subconsciously or consciously, and this is something that we want to avoid being the target of, especially when we are rich. The fourth reason to practice stealth wealth and really avoid lifestyle inflation is that I think it can keep you really grounded. This is a bit of a subjective take, but I think if you become so obsessed with possessions, you may lose sight of what's actually important in life. True fulfillment often comes from meaningful experiences rather than accumulating things. When you focus on experiences, whether that's traveling to new places, learning new skills, or spending quality time with your loved ones, you are going to be creating lasting memories and personal growth that, in my opinion, no luxury item can provide you. Experiences can shape who you are, contribute to fulfillment and happiness, and honestly make your life so much more interesting. Of course, I'm not one to completely disregard personal possessions. I did just pick up this Mewtwo Pokemon card after all. But if you had asked me if I'd rather have this card or a week off playing Super Smash Bros. With my best friends in a remote location, I would probably choose the latter. Possessions can become outdated. They could break and they could also depreciate. I mean, hopefully not my Pokemon card, but they could lose their luster quickly. Having a priority of stealth wealth shifts your goals from impressing others or acquiring items to instead investing in experiences that will truly matter to you and you will remember over the course of your life. The other thing I want to bring up is that oftentimes showing off your wealth might give you more pressure overall later on in life. If the true point of financial freedom is to quit your job and enjoy your time off, then displaying your wealth could actually do the opposite. Consider the fact that if you buy a big lavish house now, you're going to have more square footage to decorate. You'll probably need cleaners to come by regularly and landscapers and maybe even a pool guy. You're going to have this expectation looming over you of keeping up appearances for your neighbors, your friends, and your family. And they all might come with the headache of spending more money to upkeep your life. If you're part of a church organization, you could get some pressure from them in the form of asking for donations all the time. If you attend a wedding, even the expectation of your gift might be a lot bigger than someone who doesn't show off their wealth. There are so many levels to wealth, but if the goals of becoming wealthy are to live your most fulfilling life, then you will be happier, in my opinion, if you just remain quiet about it. Take a look at this tweet on the screen. It summarizes exactly the different levels of rich. And I really like this from last week. Level 1, cut your own grass, probably because you have no money. Level 2, pay someone else to cut your grass, probably because you have some money now. And level 3, cut your own grass, This is so beautiful because now you've probably ultimately retired and you have so much freedom and free time that you can now cut your own grass again. I think this is pretty funny and accurate because the person at level 3 is probably enjoying their life. So, what should you spend money on if you do become rich? I think there are ultimately a few things that you should spend money on, and this is just my subjective opinion. Number 1 is longevity. If you can make your life last longer and spend money on your health, I think it's always a good priority and it's not very flashy because no one can tell if you're spending money on your health. Number 2 is comfort. If you can make your life more comfortable or convenient, I would certainly prioritize spending money on things like a nicer mattress, direct flights, or even a nice hotel room. Number 3, you could spend money on other people. If you enjoy helping your friends and family, this is a really nice thing, and it's a great way to spend the money that you have. Number 4, other hobbies and passions. Anything that helps bring a little bit more fulfillment to your life are great ways to spend money, in my opinion. So when you do get rich, make sure you tell no one, but do tell them about my YouTube channel. If you appreciate the message in this video, make sure to share it with a friend or perhaps a family member of yours. And if you do become a billionaire, make sure to invite me to your parties, the parties that don't exist, because you're practicing stealth wealth. See, I almost got you. Music.